All right, we're doing another one of these Rami La Vie podcasts, and I'm in my parents' house right now as we speak. I'm here for Pesach, so definitely a different setup. But I promised that as long as I could do one of these every day, I would. So I'm here doing this. And the story of today is the Jets traded away Zach Wilson. Now the compensation doesn't matter; they're splitting the draft pick, they're splitting the payment. They're trading him to the Denver Broncos, and to me, it's not even so much about trading Zach Wilson. It's kind of a bittersweet day. Well, there's no sweet part. They got rid of him. Like, that's it. And it closes the book on all those Zach Wilson truthers. This is arguably the worst quarterback in franchise history, arguably the worst draft pick in franchise history, and arguably the worst quarterback ever if he doesn't start another game in the NFL. And we'll see what happens. He has a chance to start in Denver because there's not like there's a bunch of great options there. But it does close the chapter on what is yet another bad decision by the Jets. And it's another guy who, while we probably knew for a while, and if you're like me and you weren't a Zach Wilson truther, which those people, my God, but if you're like me and you understood that this guy was never good and he just couldn't figure it out between the years, you understood that this was never going to happen. But today just closes the book on it for once and for all. And it's just, so it's a little bit of a sad day. It's another stamp of this didn't work. Another guy who the Jets took and it did not work, whether it's a quarterback, whether it's another first overall draft pick, that just didn't work for a first round draft pick, second overall for the New York Jets. That didn't work. And that's a problem. When you look at the numbers, 57% completion percentage since 2021. This is amongst 42 quarterbacks with at least 15 starts since 2021. Last in completion percentage, last in touchdown to interception ratio, which was 23 touchdowns, 15 to 25 interceptions. 39th amongst 42 in yards per attempt with 6.3 and 41st out of 42 in total QBR. This guy is going to go down as one of the worst draft picks, the biggest draft busts ever. And it's not like he didn't start. It's not like he didn't get an opportunity. He had opportunity after opportunity, 2 full years as a starter, and then the third full year essentially after Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and it just didn't work. And as much as people wanted to believe from glimpses, whether it was the Kansas City game that everyone talked about, which, my God, how much stock do we put into 3 freaking drives, whether it was that game or whether it was the Houston game late in the year, which is even more puzzling to me, that looked incredible. We know the kid had all the talent in the world. I don't know if it was a lack of effort thing. I don't know what it was, but he just couldn't put it together. And I'm not willing to go out and say that it was someone else's fault. With Sam Darnold, I still think Sam Darnold could have a solid career. I hope he looks good in Minnesota this year if they do decide to start him. Uh, but here, I think it's fully his fault. I think it's on Zach. He had the offensive line for the most part. He had good weapons with Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall for the most part. And he just could never figure it out. We've seen so many other guys come into that offense, whether it was Josh Johnson, Mike White, it didn't matter, and be successful, even Chris Streveler at times, Joe Flacco at times. Everyone looked better in this offense than Zach Wilson. And so that falls squarely on the shoulders of Zach Wilson. You could blame the offensive coordinator. They had 2 different ones. You could blame the head coach. And I don't know. I just, like I said, other people looked good in this offense and Zach could not figure it out. Clearly, the Jets as a team and as players aren't too distraught over this. DJ Reed tweeted out, should I switch to my number to 2 or should I stick with 4? So they're not too distraught over losing Zach Wilson as a teammate. And we knew that the teammates probably didn't love him all along. So that's the story as far as Zach Wilson. That's the story there. And it's like I said, it's not a happy day as a Jet fan because you're not happy. You knew this was inevitable. It was coming sooner rather than later for Zach Wilson. But it is closing the chapter on another chapter of Jets history and Jets football. It's just a disaster, and they can't seem to get the quarterback right. I think going into last year, we still thought there was a chance that sitting behind Aaron Rodgers would get him to that point. And now it's official. He's not going to be that guy. Now, obviously, we know the playoff games continue tonight with the Knicks, tomorrow with the Rangers, and we'll talk about those on Wednesday after those 2 games. I won't be doing this, obviously, tomorrow and the next day. Or I guess the next day is Wednesday. So tomorrow it'll be 1 day off, just Tuesday off, and that's it. We'll be back Wednesday to recap game 3 Knicks and game 2 Knicks and game 2 Rangers. I'll watch both of those games. And then I'll be back. But the Yankees did play today. They played an early game. So they are accommodating to the Jewish fan, to the Orthodox fan, or to really a lot of Jews who are celebrating Pesach tonight. And the Seder night is a big night for the Jews. And so for our whole community, everyone's celebrating tonight. It's a big deal. And, so I'm excited to be here with my family doing this. And I'm sure many people are with family or with friends or whoever they are with their community. So the Yankees play a day game on Monday, as I guess it's common tradition that they've done at home. Yankees or Mets have played a day game on the day of the Seder, so not to interfere with the Seder night. Um, and the Yankees lose to the A's to get shut out 2-0. So, first of all, you just can't lose to the A's. That's the number one thing. The number two takeaway is Aaron Judge. And I said this yesterday, I'll say it again today. If you're not worried about Aaron Judge, then I'm not sure what to tell you anymore. Then there's nothing that's going to make you worried about Aaron Judge. This is time and time again that he's seeing, whether it's fastballs, whether it's hanging sliders, pitches that he usually crushes, and he's just fouling them off right now. And I know every athlete and every baseball player specifically goes through slumps like that. There's something there. Even watching him run in center field looks like he's lumbering around out there. His eyes the same. He's still taking his walks. He's not pressing. You love to see that from Aaron Judge. He's still the same guy. He's still the professional. He's Jeterian like that, right? Where he's just going to do his thing. But it seems like there's something wrong with him, and it goes beyond just struggling at the plate. And I'm nervous as a Yankee fan. I'm not going to be one of these Yankee fans that just sits here and says, "Oh, it's Aaron Judge. He'll figure it out," because I don't know if he'll figure it out. I don't know that he'll for sure figure it out. That's the problem with Aaron Judge right now, and I don't know when it's going to be solved. Now, as far as the rest of the Yankees, you can't tell me Clay Holmes isn't injured. You don't go 2 days in a row without using your closer. And I know today was in a tie game, but yesterday was a one-run game, and you didn't use your closer. So now you're going to go a second consecutive game without using your closer. This time it's a tie game. And by the way, the Yankees lose because they gave up 2 runs in that. Now, that's not why they lost. They lost because the offense couldn't score. They didn't score a single run in the game. You can't lose when you get shut out. And speaking of that, 4 times now the Yankees have been shut out 4 times this year. So as fun as the Yankees have been, as awesome as the offense has been at times, they get shut out in 4 games also. So just a weird situation what's going on with the Yankees right now for an offense that's been so good this year, that's been so consistent, to get shut out 4 times also is just a weird combination, and I'm not sure what's going on with the Yankee offense. Now, as far as the umpire, because that was the biggest story of the game, the umpire in this game, obviously, Hunter Wendelstedt in the first inning, he calls out a pitch on. He calls out, I guess it was the A's hitter who gets hit by the pitch. I think it was Esther Ruiz, who's actually back up from the minor leagues now. He gets called hit by pitch when he clearly swung at the pitch. And, you could say whether he swung or not doesn't make a difference. He goes down to first base. And then what happens? They tell Aaron Boone's arguing with Hunter Wendelstedt, and he gets thrown out of the game for something that a fan said. Clearly, Boone's not even talking. He's actually looking at his fingernails. He's like checking his fingernails. All right, I've moved on. I'm pretty mad. He gets thrown out of the game. And the umpire, you hear it on the hot mic on a Monday with nobody there. The umpire, Hunter Wendelstedt, the home plate umpire, says, "I don't care who said it. You're gone." And it was clearly someone, like, you could see the fan, and the fan was embarrassed afterwards. He takes his shirt off because he's probably getting texts and tweets like, "Oh my God, this guy, the idiot who got Aaron Boone ejected." But this is on Hunter Wendelstedt. And after the game, they caught up with him. And this is just I don't understand this. It's one thing, and you see this with certain refs, whether it's Scott Foster or in the NBA, or that's in the NBA, but in Major League Baseball, you see it so much. Obviously, with Angel Hernandez, you can't have guys who have an ego out there and make it about themselves. He clearly had some sort of superiority complex, or, hey, I need to assert my authority here, and I need to tell you how it is, and I don't care who said it, I'm going to throw you out. And then after the game, he doubles down on it. This is the type of thing where you want to see leagues take action. You can't have situations like this where umpires have no consequences. And after the game, Hunter said apparently what he said was, there was a fan right above the dugout. This isn't my first ejection. In the entirety of my career, I have never ejected a player or a manager for something a fan has said. I understand that's going to be part of the story or something like that, because that's what Aaron was portraying. I heard something come from the far end of the Yankee dugout, nothing to do with his area, but he's the manager of the Yankees, so he's the one that had to go. And I saw my friend Max Manis wrote, well, there's a first for everything. He's basically saying, nope, it came from the Yankees dugout, and I've never done it before, so it couldn't possibly be that I messed up. Doubles down on it and basically says, no, I'm right, you're wrong. So this is just another situation where, again, these umpires, these referees, we don't know what kind of discipline there is for them, or if there is, we never hear about it. But at some point, there has to be checks and balances, because, look, they are human, and so they are going to get defensive about things, and they also have their own agendas. They have to. It just exists. I'm not saying he has a certain agenda against the Yankees, but it does exist. You are human. Emotion plays a role. And unless you're going to have robot umpires, emotion's going to play a role in it. And if you're going to put in emotional humans in this situation, you have to take that out of it. You have to discipline them somehow in a way where he's completely controlling the game because he lost his cool, because he got emotional over something. And that's on him. And there's got to be some sort of consequence for him. Last thing was an article that came out, and this kind of goes into the Knicks game tonight. The Knicks are playing tonight. And I want to read some excerpts from this article because I thought it was a great job by Fred Katz. So the Athletic does their poll for the NBA players, and for the second consecutive year, Tom Thibodeau by far won the poll of who is the head coach you want to play for least. Now, the reason this poll is dumb, it's like 80 NBA players, and I know there's not a ton of NBA players in the league. There's more than 80, and who knows who they're actually talking to. And every Knicks player came out and said, this is stupid. Why are we like, it's the poll's dumb in the first place. It's a few people from the league who said they don't want to play for Tom Thibodeau. And guess what? I don't want those people on my team. The narrative amongst those people was he works their players too hard. And the other thing was their practices are too intense. First of all, their practices are not intense. And that's what everyone said. Their practices are detail oriented. He doesn't run them hard in practice, but he makes sure they're watching film and he points out certain things to them. And then Fred Katz did just an incredible job. And so the other thing is, I want people who want to work. I want people who want to buy in. Clearly, that's what the Knicks want because they went out and got OG Anunoby. They went out and got, obviously, Jalen Brunson was the first one who said he's familiar with him from Chicago, knows how hard the work was, and that's why he came here. He went out and got Dante DiVincenzo. And one of the things DiVincenzo said is, why do you think every single player on the Knicks is having a career year with the Knicks? Why do you think he gets the most out of every single player? That's because that's what Tom Thibodeau does. Considering the injuries this year, the fact that they're the number 2 seed, they won 50 games. That's Tom Thibodeau. That's what Tom Thibodeau does. And so it's an incredible job by him. And if you don't want to be part of that, then we don't want you here anyway. But the Fred Katz article, and he works for The Athletic also, so maybe he has a little inside knowledge on what happened with the poll. But he said a couple of things that I put in here, just a couple. The first thing he said, Tom Thibodeau is not the way he titled it isn't wearing down his Knicks players. He's enhancing them. And that's the perfect title. But the first story he told was the Corey effing Kispert story, which was last year, a game late in the year against, and you might remember this game against Washington. And he said the Knicks were down. Corey Kispert scored 20 points. He was averaging 11 per game on the year. Corey Kispert scored 20 points in the first half. And the Knicks were down, I think, 8 at the half. And they get in the locker room, and all Tom Thibodeau goes, he goes, Corey effing Kispert, Corey fucking Kispert, over and over again. And then he goes, and Josh Hart, who was telling the story, says each time he recalled it, it got louder and louder. And then the last time he says, how does Corey Kispert turn into Michael Jordan? And you could just hear, if you've watched a Knick game, you see, and if you've been at a Knick game, you could see how Tom Thibodeau yells on the sideline. And so you can imagine him saying that. Eventually, the Knicks did come back and win that game. But it's stories like that that you hear. The other thing that I saw, and I'll get back to that story in a second, but the other thing I saw was there are 3 sayings, 3 phrases that they painted over the Knicks locker room for this postseason run. They say, no quit, all grit, close knit. Those are the 3 sayings apparently that Tom Thibodeau wanted painted on the wall that describe this team perfectly. You see how much they love each other. You see how much they play for each other. That's the close knit. They've gone down in games. They've had injuries. They've had things not go their way. No quit. That's all of them. And all grit, it doesn't matter. And you saw that in game 1. It didn't matter who had their shot, who didn't have their shot. They found ways, and that's why guys like Dante DiVincenzo and Jalen Brunson are getting the most out of themselves. Now, Josh Hart finds the whole thing to be amusing, and I love this. He says, when he yells, I think it's funny. So he said even, the Corey Kispert story was hilarious, but the one thing he said was the funniest thing about Thibs, he'll be calm, he'll say something, and he'll make himself mad. So he'll be like, Chicago, we got out rebounded, and we're fucking pussies because we got out rebounded. To me, that's just like, what is happening? He's like, that's what's funny. The funniest thing is he starts calm and he makes himself mad. So Josh Hart recalling that. Now, this other story, because if you all remember earlier this year, the Knicks lose to the Sixers 79-73. So this story is fantastic. In general, what happens is that if there's a 7 p.m. or later tip-off, you'll have a shoot-around earlier that day. Now, this game was a 7 p.m. tip-off, but because it was the day after the clocks changed, Thibodeau went back and forth and ultimately decided, because he doesn't run his players too hard, to skip the tip-off, to skip the shoot-around, because really, essentially, it was a 6 p.m. tip-off, despite the fact that it happened at 7 p.m. So leading into the game, Tom Thibodeau decided to skip the shoot around. That night, the Knicks lost 79-73, the NBA's only instance this season of two teams scoring fewer than 80 points in the same game. According to people within the Knicks, Thibodeau was convinced that canceling shoot around was the difference, grumbling about this for some time afterwards. So Tom Thibodeau didn't get over it easily, and this is exactly the type of coach that you love. And if you remember, the Knicks shot terribly in that game. This is why you love Tom Thibodeau. This is the difference that Tom Thibodeau has had on this team. This is the impact that Tom Thibodeau has had on this culture, has had on this organization. So the Knicks not playing their game and getting outplayed, maybe when it looks at shooting, their superstar, whatever you want to talk about in game one, and they still win because a guy like Deuce McBride went off. Bojan Bogdanovic made the most of his minutes. Mitchell Robinson, the hot hand, came in late, and they dominated on the rebounds. They dominated on the offensive rebounds. They played hard and hustle defense. That's how the Knicks are going to win games sometimes, and it's why you love this team. It's why you love this culture. And it's why Tom Thibodeau should frankly be the NBA Coach of the Year. Now, he's not even a finalist, which is ridiculous. Josh Hart tweeted about that, but I love this team. I can't wait for tonight to see what happens. I'll watch the game, obviously, tomorrow night or Wednesday night afterwards, and after I watch the full game back, I'll also watch the full Rangers game, and then I'll do one of these. It'll probably be late Wednesday night by the time I'm sitting down to record this. But again, I'm excited for the Knicks, the Zach Wilson story, and Aaron Judge. Get right. Hopefully, I won't be seeing the next couple Yankee games, so hopefully he gets right. Meanwhile, the Mets are out there in San Francisco. So good luck to the Mets out there who have been playing really well recently. That's going to do it for me. Until next time, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share it. I appreciate all of you for listening, as always. Until next time, see ya.